Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today I'm talking about the end of suffering, which sounds like quite a huge topic to tackle on this particular day, but I've seen some things about this, and hopefully the way I'm going to share this today will help you to see those too. Because our suffering as human beings is caused by thought. The horrible feelings that we feel about the things that are happening in our lives, the anxiety, the stress, all of it is created in exactly the same way. It's created via the power of thought, consciousness, and what's known as mind, or the universe's energy, the energy of life. But we look all over the place to try and end our suffering, don't we? We look to change the outside world. We look to fix ourselves. We look to do all sorts of things to try and make ourselves feel better. Now, this morning, I'm going to share a little metaphor. Please bear with me. Hopefully this will bring you to some laughter as well as make my point. So let's imagine you and I are in a conversation, and I'm telling you all about my awful headache. I've had this headache for weeks now, and I can't get rid of it. And I've tried all sorts of things. I've been sniffing peppermint oil. I've been going for long walks in the fresh air. I've drunk loads and loads of water. I've cut out caffeine. I've done lots and lots of things. And the headache's just on this side of my head. It's really annoying. It's really bothering me. And of course, what you will say to me is, you'll say to me, Claire, you're hitting yourself on the head with a ruler. And of course, I'll stop. I didn't know I was doing this, but once you tell me I'm doing this, I'll stop. In many, many parts of our lives, we do realize when our thinking is off, that our bodies are telling us that. I think anger's a great example. We've all had an email or a message that's created that seems to be making us feel angry, but we realize, don't we, that angry feeling is telling us that our state of mind is not in a good place. And we realize that we don't send the email because we realize that our state of mind is off. So we put close our computer down. We might leave the email in drafts if we've written it. And the next morning, when we look at that email from a calmer state of mind, we realize that our thinking was off. And what we've written is the product of that awful thinking that was creating that awful angry feeling. And we rewrite. We don't even send an email at all, maybe a lot of the time, because we see that we've been suffering at that time from our angry thinking. And that's what the feeling was. We realize that the feeling is not going to be resolved by having a go at somebody else in an email. But a lot of the time we don't see that. And I see this more and more as my role is to help people to see where they're doing this. Where are they hurting themselves with the way they're looking at things? Had a beautiful example this morning with my other half to do with an issue at work where he'd wrapped a story around somebody else's behavior, what they were thinking, why they're doing it, how they weren't behaving in the right way because of the decision they'd made, and how I helped him to see that it wasn't what they'd done, because what they'd done was just so insignificant, really. But it was the story that he and a colleague of his had wrapped around this thing that somebody had done. And that's happening all day, every day to all of us. It happens to me too, all the time. And I'm so grateful when somebody points it out to me and says, oh, hang on a minute, Claire, that's you. That's you. The suffering is coming from you. But until we see it, human suffering will continue. And this is so much broader than just us as well, because when if we are in a poor state of mind, if we are angry, or if anybody else in the world is angry, people do awful things to other human beings from this place of anger when they don't realize that it's not the other person making them feel angry. Other people can't make us feel anything. So this understanding that I share with you is the answer to the end of human suffering. And boy, do we need that. Boy, do we need something to change. And it looks, doesn't it, like there's all these things in the outside world that need to change so that we can all be okay. But if we all could read our own system better, a lot of those things in the outside world would self-resolve, because us as human beings would know when we had an angry feeling and we wouldn't act from that place anymore. We'd know when we were fearful, when we had fearful thinking, and we wouldn't act from that place anymore. We would act more and more from a place of love and peace and calm and harmony and compassion. But the trouble is that we don't mostly know where that suffering is coming from. If I think that the suffering, I could look all over the place for the problem with my head, couldn't I? Like I said at the beginning, I could be doing lots of external things, but I could be having tests done and, surgery done on my head. Because of course, when I went to the doctors, I probably wouldn't do the doctor wouldn't know that I was hitting myself on that. But as soon as somebody tells you you're hurting yourself, it makes no more sense to carry on. And what happens over time, I've seen with myself and my clients, is that there's just more awareness, there's more of an ability to see where we're creating it. So I've started to get a real awareness of how I tend to judge people. Like that's just one of my things. I don't feel bad about myself for that. I just know I've got some patterns around judgment about how other people, believe it or not, do not live their lives Claire's way. It's an outrage, I realise. I realise you're probably all outraged too that people don't all live their lives Claire's way, but they don't. And I've noticed that I have a lot of thinking about that. And when I go into this thinking about other people and how they're not seeing things my way and they're not doing things my way, whether it's somebody close to me in my family or just somebody on the street who's just behaving in a way I don't like, I've noticed that creates suffering. I feel horrible. I feel off. I feel angry with those people, and that is hurting me. This understanding that our feelings are telling us about our state of mind, that our thinking is creating our experience, is like the ultimate form of self-care. Because I don't want to hurt myself anymore. If I go into that train of thought, I know I'm going to feel awful. Now, that doesn't mean I catch it every time. I fundamentally don't. Trust me, I miss it all the time. But that's okay. That's okay too. But the more times I catch it, the more time I spend in this just a heck of a lot nicer feeling. And don't we all want to be in a nicer feeling more of the time? Don't we all act better for ourselves and other people when we're in that nice feeling? And the only thing that really needs to change is for us to see when we're not in the nice feeling and understand that that's coming from us 100% of the time. There's no leeway here. I know it looks like it's your job and your boss that's stressful and your partner's behaving terribly and they're creating this awful feeling. I know that looks real. But the suffering is coming from you. And when you start to see that, it makes less and less sense to continue down that path. And they're well-trodden paths, aren't they? But when we start to see that that's where the suffering is, then it can end. And then there's a possibility to live more of your life in a wonderful state. And who doesn't want that? None of us want to suffer, do we? We just don't know. We just don't know why we're suffering. We just don't know. Keep looking in this direction. Keep listening to what I'm saying, and you'll see it more and more. And that's the space for the end of human suffering. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.